sad to see Lord Monkton go. We're going to serve him up some good Texas barbecue, though.
I'm looking forward to that.
The government minister that wants to ban crucifix in England, and the EU's agreeing with them. She looks like a witch. I mean, I don't go off how you look, but I mean, it's not just that she's older. My grandmother is very, almost 90, but she's a lovely light in her eyes. This woman looks like central casting to be a witch. Guys, show folks a document cam shot of that. I mean, it's just these people are monstrous, and it's all about the raw exercise of power, isn't it?
Well, yes, bring back the ducking stool, say I. I mean, this woman really has gone far beyond what is common sense. And she can do this because, unfortunately, our Catholic bishops in England and Wales, unlike the ones in Scotland and unlike the ones in America, are soggy and useless. The one in Scotland, we have a marvellous cardinal in Scotland, Cardinal O'Brien, who speaks out. He's a working-class guy, but he speaks out with terrific authority. And the press respect him, even when he's saying things that are deeply unfashionable. Whereas in England, they just don't seem to have the same kind of muscular approach, and they don't stand up for the Church's teachings against the increasing encroachment of this all-encompassing...
Well, even if you're not a Christian, it's obvious that Christianity's better than New World Order socialism.
Well, I would certainly say that's the case. And unfortunately, the governing class has decided that Christianity is uncongenial to it because it encourages people to think for themselves rather than becoming just like the Borg. I mean, we're dealing with the Borg here, aren't we, really? That sort of uniform thinking, all with a hive mentality like the Borg in Star
Where are you
Trek.
Speaking next?
So next I'm going to Arizona to speak to several tea parties. There's a thing called a surprise tea party. I'm speaking at that shortly. A couple of speeches in Arizona. Then I go back to the UK. Then I'm almost straight onto the next plane down to Rio to try and throw a wrench in the...
And we're going to be able to get you on from there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Let's jam in a few more calls. Christopher in California, you're on the air with Lord Monkton.
Hey, how's it going, Lord Monkton? Alex Jones, how are you?
Good to hear you, Christopher.
Hey, how's it going? I'm originally from Yuma, Arizona. The thing is, I had a couple of questions. Do you think it's true, from what the books I've been reading from David Icke, saying that these groups are...
people like David Icke, saying that the elites are, really, really bloodthirsty agendas.
Yes, David Icke, I think, one has to be a little bit cautious of. He's slightly gone off the rails, I think. But yeah, I think one needs to.
He's a nice guy, though.
You can go about as far as Alex Jones. Going beyond Alex Jones, you're out right into the darkness of complete.
Who knows, though? That woman does look like she might be a reptoid, Lord Monkton.
Yeah, she does look as though she's come out of one of the Star Wars films as an extra. Yes.
So you think I'm like the outer limit, like the final waypoint?
You're about as far as one can safely go before going out into the complete void.
Once you cross that line, it's like
then you really.
It's like Charon, the boatman says,
That's it. You're beyond the pale. There's no coming back.
I'm like a pillar. You reach that, and the river Styx is right there. Thank you, caller. Just something else. Bob, real fast in Missouri. Go ahead.
Yes, Lord Monkton and Alex. As you were talking, I kept thinking of this new Reichstag fire for the EU and the rise of a strong man. It just kept coming up in my head as I was hearing you talk about the breakup of the EU. I don't think the controllers are going to tolerate the breakup. I think they're going to do some sort of a synthetic terror incident.
That's very sensible. You're quite right. They will. I don't know that they will literally go so far as to invent a terror incident. I think they know that the likes of Alex and the likes of me are watching, and if they did that, we really would come after them until we got them. So no, I don't think they'll do that. What I do think is that they will certainly want to keep the power they've already got. They won't want the EU to be dismantled because it makes them feel powerful. It gives them enormous powers of taxation and regulation without any accountability to any electors. That's what they want. And we must make sure they don't get it.
Well, they definitely will try some tricks. But look here. You know what? I want you to be able to say hi to Max Kaiser. We're going to come back in 3 minutes, and you'll get to eat that plate of barbecue. We'll get Max on, and then I'll just say bye to you in the middle of the segment.
Fantastic.
But plus, I've got to put on my Lord Monkton 2012 President button. We'll show you these if you're watching on Prisonplanet.tv when we come back. If not, it'll be Radio Theater. But there it is. Sick of the globalists. Well, we've had Lord Monkton in here for the last hour and a half, and I just wanted to have him be able to finish up any points that you were making. You're going to be down at the 20th anniversary of Maurice Strong and his post-industrial world. Going to be reporting on that for us. When is that coming up?
That's coming up kind of mid-June in Rio de Janeiro. and something like 100 so-called world, so-called leaders will be turning up, and I will be there to throw a large wrench in the works.
All right, and also you're going to be speaking next out in Arizona. Can people find out more at scienceandpublicpolicy.org?
I'll have to get back to you on that one and get you to put it on the website, because I'm not sure who is covering that one from the internet.
Absolutely. In closing, when do you expect the euro to break up?
It's already happening. Greece is on its way out. I would think within weeks they'll have to make an announcement.
Will it be Italy or Spain next that goes under?
Spain is next, and you can tell this by looking at the amount of interest which governments have to pay in order to get people to lend money to them. And Spain is clearly now in the same territory that Greece was in a few months ago. Spain will be next, Portugal not far behind, Italy after that, and even France after that. France is in very bad financial situation. And it's now just elected.
But I'm sure Hollande will save him with a 75% tax rate. Hey, Max Kaiser, you're here in the U.S. now, but you've predicted accurately what's happened in the euro. You live over in France. I mean, do you think that Hollande's going to be better than Sarkozy?
No. It's more of the same.
Yeah, quite right, Max. I agree with you on that.
Well, we're going to get Max Kaiser and Max Kaiser's take on that right now. Lord Monckton, thank you so much. In closing, who came up with these Vote Lord Monckton 2012 in the U.S.? Because you were telling me about your birth certificate. You were born in the U.S., too.
Well, in Hawaii, I've got a birth certificate to prove it, and it is every bit as genuine as that of President Obama.
Thank you so much.
Bless you, and God bless America.
It was fantastic meeting you in person, sir.
It's been a real fun hour and a half, and I just think we've had a blast here. And once again, I say, if you've been listening to this and you think that it all sounds a bit extreme, what we face now is extreme. We do face real problems from our governing class.
And we need to be extreme back at them. Lord Monckton?
So what we need to be is to be careful and proportionate, but very, very tough. Do not let them roll you over.
God bless. Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
All right. Great having him here in person. Thank you. And go enjoy some Texas barbecue now at leisure.
Will do.
All right. There he goes. I wish you were here, Max Kaiser. I can't wait to get Max Kaiser someday. Elvis has left the building there. Lord Elvis. It is great to have you, Max. You have been a hard guy to get on the last month. I need my Max Kaiser fix here, buddy.
Yeah. We've been doing a lot of traveling, and so it's been tough to get on. But I'm in New York City right now, and with the J.P. Morgan story breaking and some other stories breaking, I'm glad to get a chance to speak to you and your listeners.
Yeah, I've been following your show, so I've noticed you've been on the road. Always great information. What do you want to hit first? J.P. Morgan, the latest on MF Global, this big scam. I mean, that's my view that, well, they admit he was selling the stock as he hyped it this week. I mean, is he going to get jail time? You don't get suckered, you get zuckered now. The EU gyrating wildly. What do you want to hit first, Max Kaiser, retired top stockbroker, TV host extraordinaire on BBC, RT, Al Jazeera, you name it, he does it. There with his trusty sidekick. What is first and center on your radar screen?
Well, I think we need to talk about J.P. Morgan, because we've been talking about J.P. Morgan on your show for a couple of years, and what we've been saying is that the company is very vulnerable because their balance sheet is extraordinarily laden with toxic derivatives that are completely unsustainable.
You'd been predicting they were going to have a crisis, and people laughed. Not the king of the hill, not the top of the pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we advised people was to attack their balance sheet. We know that when they acquired Bear Stearns, that they inherited a 3 billion ounce naked short position on silver. And the fact is that last year, people listening to your show got silver to double in price, and now we see the results. J.P. Morgan announced a $2 billion. Now it's a $5 billion. Now talking about a $12 billion loss on their balance sheet, $20 billion loss in market capitalization. That is a direct result of direct action by listeners buying silver, because to cover that short, they had to scrape, borrow, and steal from other pieces of their balance sheet. They had to go all the way to London to get their trader in London to start committing fraud to cover that hole, and they got caught. And this is just going to be now the fuse has been lit. J.P. Morgan is going the way of Enron. It's going the way of all these banks that end up going completely bust. The stock's going to zero.
Now, there's over 1,000 trillion in admitted derivatives. Even the Washington Post admits that. It's impossible to pay back. It's not our debt. Over 90% of Greece's debt, Iceland, all of it. Ireland, not their debt. But J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and others were able to get their people in as ministers over finance, but also as the presidents and prime ministers, to sign everybody onto the debt. But now I notice they're burning banks in Greece, where you've been. All over Europe, people know it's the banksters. I'm even seeing Hollywood movies talk about the banksters. I saw a Marky Mark movie called The Other Guys, a comedy, and it was all about, you know, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan ripping people off. I mean, when even the power structure starts admitting, it looks like they're getting ready to leave the sinking ship. What do you expect to happen?
Well, people are beginning to figure out it's the bankers. Remember, a few years ago, 10 years ago, they had the anti-globalization movement. They figured out that was too vague, so they reinvented themselves as the Occupy Wall Street movement, which is still too vague. But soon they will be figuring out it's the anti-Federal Reserve Bank, anti-Jamie Dimon, who sits on the New York Fed, and J.P. Morgan's chairman's chairs movement. So as they begin to get specific now about who the real criminals are, then I would imagine that their actions would be also very direct and specific.
What's happening in Europe right now?
Well, the banking situation is, of course, quite dire, and they are attempting to deal with these massive bank runs. So in Greece, just in the last week, hundreds of billions of euros have been exiting Greece. We have bank deposits exiting Spain. Right now, a lot of that money is going into the dollar and the British pound and the German government bond. And here's something interesting. We've talked about it on your show before, Alex, and now it looks like it's coming true. We've talked about the possibility of banks issuing bonds and governments issuing bonds that pay a negative interest rate. In other words, you pay the bank to hold your money. And this will be a viable option for people who are too frightened by the volatility, they're too frightened by the street violence, they're willing to give their money to the government, to the banks, and pay the government 1 or 2% a year or 5% a year, and they'll take that loss because they think it's the only way to preserve whatever they have left. That's what they are aiming for, because of course they'd love to have that use of your money and not only not pay you any interest, but have you pay them interest. It's called indentured servitude.
Now, obviously, the banksters think 30,000 drones launching over the U.S. with our taxpayer money is going to keep them safe, but as Brzezinski's even admitted, once the oligarchy is identified and the puppets are exposed as puppets, it's game over. There's no way that once the people understand it's the bankers screwing everything up, that they're going to get away with this. So how do you see this shaking out as everything we've predicted, you've predicted, all our guests have said, you know, Euro imploding, the next the U.S. The U.S. is in worse financial situation, but it's economic warfare. I mean, the globalists say world government's going to be the answer, run by the very bankers that engineered this. How are they going to get away with this?
They'll offer safe harbor to people who are willing to give up everything to live on the right side of the castle wall, as you see a return to feudalism and lords and serfs and a complete evisceration of the middle class. Now, let's look at something that was in The Economist magazine this past week, page 79. They talk openly about the fact that Goldman Sachs, another bank we've talked about on your show often, was engaged in, this is only made public because of a mistake made by a lawyer at the firm. They got the documents. It shows clearly that Goldman Sachs was engaged in something called naked short selling. They sell stock, in this case a company called Overstock.com. They sell stock that never existed, which is the exact same thing as counterfeiting. And something I've said many times in Al Jazeera, which they never had me back on after I told them about naked short selling and counterfeiting. When I mentioned this on my film for Al Jazeera English called Money Geyser and other films about naked short selling, my entry in Wikipedia was taken down for a year because of the forces that were trying to keep a lid on the scandal of naked short selling. Now, because of a mistake made by a lawyer, it's on page 79 of The Economist. It should be on page 1, because you would think counterfeiting would be the most heinous of all crimes in economies that consider themselves to be capitalist. But they admitted that they were, in fact, engaged in outright counterfeiting. This is the same thing that